Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us again on Achievers Financial Education. And I'm glad for you to join with us again. If you have been joining us on our regular scheduled on Thursdays at 5 o'clock, we have been informing you about a lot of great information about different things. We've covered about pay yourself first, about investments versus being in different types of expenses, investment and consumer, which is consumption, and learning just different concepts of different ways of how finances has been broken down. And I know you guys probably didn't learn about anything about finances. You probably just learned about getting a paycheck and spending it, right? So we're gonna learn different ways of how to take and spend your money in a different concept, and then learn also different ways of how you can apply it and maybe make some big changes in your ways of how you spend it to change your life in a very different way by little steps in how we teach you. So we're gonna go over some different things today and go over some fundamentals of how we have taught you and maybe help change your whole dynamics of how we have taught you different things of that nature. So remember, we are available on Instagram, on social media platforms, different ways, again, on Facebook, on YouTube. So please make sure you join us on whatever medium that you feel comfortable in joining us, and we are always available so you can listen to us if you missed us at 5 o'clock on Thursdays. So I'm gonna get into what we're gonna talk about today, which is the power of home ownership. I touched on it last week a little bit, but I'm gonna dive in a little bit more deeper on some of it. So tell me, how many of you guys like paying taxes? Right? None of you, right? But here are some of the things I'm going to talk about, the benefits of how when you take and have to pay taxes, how you can get around the ways of not having to pay taxes legally, right? So the benefits of home ownership is awesome. Some of you guys may say, well, I never really thought about home ownership. I just was, my parents have rented and they rented and my grandparents have rented. We just passed it down in generations. Well, the benefit about having to have ownership is awesome, because when we go through some of these things I'm going to show you is that it will break down the components of it. Like how much of you like living in your parents' house when you're like 30 and 40, right? They tell you all the rules and things of what it is that's going on and how you get to come in at a certain time and you don't get to do this and that. You don't like all of those things, right? Well, that's the same concept of renting. You don't get to take and make the rules and regulations in some place that you rent. You can't put holes in the walls. You can't paint the house. When you get ready to leave, you got to make sure the carpet looks right and whatever. And if you live there a long time, you know that carpet does not look the same way you moved in. So the same thing applies to when you take and have your own place. And tell me if this stuff resonates. I know you're probably nodding your head and saying, yep, mm-hmm. And the same thing is like you got to paint the walls all over. Imagine if you have your own setup, your own house. And how good does that feel? I know some of you probably say that I can't wait to have my own place so I can walk around however I choose to. I'm gonna keep it G-rated, but you already know what I'm gonna say if I was to be able to say it. If you have your own place, what you gonna do first? You don't have no mom and dad or anything, and you can do whatever you choose to do. Some of you guys, you can do whatever you want to do. You do what you do, right? And I'll leave it as that. But the benefits of it, so that's the same concept of having your own place, is to take and have your own rules. You make them. And I know my oldest probably used to say, I can't wait till I get out of here. I tell them, you and me both. So that's the same thing, is that when you have your own place, you get to choose how you want to do. And that's what I'm going to break down for you guys today. So keep with me, and I hope I'm keeping you entertained with some of the dry jokes I have for you, but it's the real. I'm not joking with you. So the power of home ownership. So you understand that when you go into ownership, it is a whole nother ball of wax. So you guys get to understand that, you are paying for your landlord's kids to go to college. You get that, right? You're not paying for your own kids to go to college. Your landlord is renting a space. So that means that all of those things, that the interest and the compounding amount of money that is going to pay on that, if it's, and the rent, how much did rent go up these past couple of years? Rent went crazy, right? How much did you guys pay for rent? You probably started out paying maybe $1,000, and then all of a sudden they tell you, oh yeah, by the way, it's gonna cost you another $500 in a less than 3-month window. And if you can't pay it, then you gotta leave. And then like another 3 months later, then it changed to another concept. And you're just like, how am I supposed to do this? My job don't pay me an extra $500. And now in another 3 months, which is in 6 months later, it went up another $1,000 in total. So you're paying literally for somebody to go through college off of your tuition plan, which is paying rent. And that's basically what you're doing because you're not putting in an investment into your own place that you're renting. So that's the same concept of it is because you're not building equity in a rental. And that's basically what we're going over in our How Money Works concept of what we're explaining. So I'm paraphrasing some of the information in this, but the basics of it is that you're not building any equity in any rental property that you have unless it's your own rental that you're having. But there's other parts to it that I'm gonna get down into it. So when you purchase a home, the beauty of it is that you have equity. When you make your first home payment, you probably say, oh my God, this is gonna be a lot of money. I don't have it, but there's beauty in it. Equity, when you start to building your house, you get this really nice notice and it comes in this nice paper or you see it come up and it tells you, you have now, maybe if you paid like $2,000 in your house and it took some of the interest, now you have $1,000 of equity in your home. That don't mean you go get to borrow anything, no, not yet, but you now have $1,000 of equity in your house. And that gives you like this great feeling because after a time period builds up, over time, it starts to grow. And that's why I said it's little pieces that you start to put into a puzzle that starts to build up. And equity is an awesome thing because after time, it starts to grow over time with value. And little by little, you start to see how that starts up. So like, for example, my mom bought a house a long time ago. And they, 30 or 40 years ago, houses were probably a lot cheaper. People were buying houses for $50,000. And you probably said, man, I wish I could have got in on that. But a lot of people had houses because houses were a lot cheaper. So $50,000 for a house right now is going for like $500,000. But that means that now your house has a lot of equity in it. So it builds value over time. And the money that you've spent on that $50,000, you've gotten back from it exponentially. Because imagine a $50,000 house now over time has grown and quadruple or quite a bit more than quadruple, but it's gotten to be quite a bit. So from the example we have here, it's kind of that same concept is that it's grown exponentially over time. So if you chose to say, you know what, I want to sell my house and I want to move to some country, of whatever state, North Carolina, South Carolina, or whatever, other place that you decide because I want to get out of Miami because it's too busy and now I'm older, I'm retired, and I want to leave, this place that's just so hustle and bustle and I just want to relax. Now you got, quite a bit, almost $1 million worth of value that you could rent this property or you could sell it or you can do whatever you choose to do. But now you have equity and you have money that now you can do something with. Rentals, you don't have that choice. Rental is either you give them the money or you leave. That's it. So those are things that I'm telling you guys so you start to understand, but that's not it. That's not all of it. That's just the icing on the cake. Now we're going to start to get into the ingredients of when you build a cake, right? So I like to bake, so you guys know when you can start to build a cake, what do you need to put in it? All the ingredients, right? So here are the concepts of the ingredients of when you decide to say, what are the benefits of taking and having home ownership? Those are the ingredients. And so these are the parts of it that I'm going to get into right now. So here are some of the benefits of home ownership, which is, versus renting. And that part means that you get to take and have advantages. And one of them I just touched on, which is building equity and wealth. We just touched on that, meaning that you get to have, after the end of it, you pay your full mortgage off. I know you feel like, hallelujah, I'm done. You probably do one of those big jumps up in the air and you're like, I am so happy. And then you get into really paying it all off. And we can get down into the really nitty gritty for some of you guys that take and say, if you get paid bi-weekly, you can pay it every, 26 pay periods, you pay an extra couple of payments in there and you could pay off your mortgage even faster. And that means you pay less interest and a lot of other things like that. But here's the other part of it. And that means that your payments for your mortgage is even paid even faster, meaning that instead of 30 years, you might cut down quite a few years on it. And some people go, I didn't know that. Yeah, well, that's why we're here. So that's why I tell you, make sure you join in and listen. Because I was teaching some people and dropping nuggets, and they're like, man, I ought to pay you for this. And it's just like, I was like, but the same way it happens with your car. Same concept. So for this, is just building that value. Tax advantages. Man, when I tell you that it's just like heartbreaking for some people, they don't realize you cannot claim taxes on any rent of any nature, period. Unless you are the person who owns the property and you're renting somebody, you can just scratch that off. Now, when you have a house and you have tax advantages, your mortgage, now the interest, you get a nice statement from the bank that loaned you the money, you can take off tax advantages for that. And that is like, you know, the great part about it is that the property taxes, you can write off for that. There's so much stuff that people don't realize that now, yes, those are payments that you made on that property, but they get tax advantages at the end of the year that you get to itemize off from your taxes. So now you don't have just that little one regular tax payments that you take and get from when you do your taxes. You actually get stuff that's taken off, and it's quite a bit more. Now, here are the other parts that I mentioned that you probably don't realize. The house that I was talking about, you can fix it however you want. You want to paint your rooms fuchsia or purple or whatever it is. You want to take up the carpet, you want to put down tile, whatever you choose to do with it, you can do whatever you want. You want to have dogs, you want to have cats, because you know, when you have a rental, you don't have that choice. Now it's yours. And now you can walk around naked if you chose to, in all your rooms in your house if you want to. Now, look, you got kids, that's on you, and that's a whole nother story. But it's yours. You don't have nobody to take it, because now you are the king or the queen of your kingdom. Now, between you and your king, that's a whole nother story. But that's something I can tell you, it's yours. So you don't have nobody to explain to. And that is something that is a difference between renting. You don't have those choices. So that's why I say you can make improvements. Now, I have seen somebody's house that I can kid you not. It said, based on your mood, you know, the Barbie movie, that's the color of their house. They chose to make it that color. That's what they wanted. It was a Barbie house movie, okay? So look, you can't knock it. You know, they don't live in certain areas with HOAs, and they can tell you can't have that color of your house. But my point is that you can do whatever you choose to do with your house within the regulations of whatever it is, but you can paint your house, your colors or whatever, change the tiles, change and have a double vanity, make your kitchen however you choose to, whatever. And you don't have to take and ask, excuse me, landlord, do you mind if I take and paint my house, my room, this color or that color? And they'll be like, well, as long as you make sure it looked the way you put it in there when you get ready to leave, that's fine by me. You know, those are the things about it. You know, the emotional benefits of having home ownership, it brings security. It brings a sense of joy and pride. You guys don't know that when you get ready to have a house, like how many people are proud to be able to say, I own a house now. I own this. This is mine. Nobody can take it away from me in the sense of I make my payments and all of those things. This is mine now. And it provides you now, I am now a home owner. Now I have something that it's like a financial asset. Do you remember back in the days when they said now you get 40 acres and a mule? That was significant. You have something of ownership. So now you mean that you have rights to something. So that's something that's significant that makes you feel like you are no longer somebody's, you know, you have property. And some people don't even realize the government was giving out all this money back in, you know, I don't know, earlier for people who made $50,000 and under or whatever it was. That money you could have probably saved up towards a down payment to be able to own a property at some point. And then the last one is stability. You know, planning, you know, having roots. You know, you can take and be able to have money that you can say that it's, you know, rent is typically raised, like I mentioned it before. And a lot of people don't even understand, like, why is my rent getting raised? You don't have any kind of say so. They can choose to change your rent however it is, and based on however your lease is written up, they can adjust it accordingly. And you either take it or leave it. And that's one of those things that is just That's what you get to either move and find someplace else to live, and it may not be really close to where you work or wherever it is that your kids go to school. You have to relocate everybody. And how much of a dissatisfier is that? So that's something that people don't realize. With your mortgage, there's other things that you can accommodate. Your mortgage is set on a fixed interest rate, if that's the one that you chose. And then you have, you know, the other part I'm not going to get into, but with an interest fixed that's on your mortgage, but for your insurance and everything else, that's set if you have, you know, wonderful insurance and whatnot. But your mortgage is set, and that's it. And now you can have your payment, you ride it out until you hit that 30-year mark, or like I said, you get your payments that you pay regularly, like your every 26 pay periods in a pay cycle or whatever, and you pay it off earlier, and that's like awesome. So if I haven't sold you yet on like buying a house versus renting, like I don't know what planet you're on, but just think about it. Now the down payment, you say, well, I can't come up with 20%. Nobody really honestly has to come up with 20%. There are people who only has to come up with 3 to 5% of the payment for the down payment of their houses. And there are programs that will help you to get into a house for first-time home buyers, that if you have under a certain amount of income, and even if you don't, you still may only have to put down this certain amount of 3 to 5%. But those are things that are, you know, you can talk to whoever your lender is and get into that. I talked about reducing your taxes. So that reduces your taxes exponentially. That takes down, you probably say, well, what does that mean? So you may earn, let's say, $100,000. But if you take down your tax liability, that means that the dollar amount that you earned is no longer being taxed at 100. It may take down to maybe 80,000. So now your taxable income is 80,000 that they're taxing you on instead of that whole 100. So isn't that a lot better? So that means you pay less on that 80,000. And that means that you don't have to pay so much, and you get to have a lot less taken out if you even do have to pay taxes at the end of the year. So those are parts that people don't realize. It helps them long term. That's why some people say, I need to buy a house so they can have some money to invest in something to help lower their tax liability. I mentioned about saving for a down payment. Those are things, like I told you, paying yourself first, so that way you get your emergency fund under lock, and that way we help you on that way, and we explained that in the other previous episodes. So if you didn't watch that, go back and watch that and listen to it, and then that way you can catch up and understand that concept. And then that way, from the emergency fund, we get you to your short term, which is to help you grow your savings for your house. And then that way we can help you make sure you're able to start getting to be move-in ready. And those things help to make sure your credit is in check, and all those other things that people start to look for to make sure you're ready for home ownership, and not having a credit card. Because if you have emergency fund, that means you're less likely to go reach for the credit card. And that makes it a lot easier to make your dreams happen. So all those things just help to check off all those little boxes that you need to do to make sure you get your home. For me, it was one of the easiest things. I could tell you, my lender was like, oh my God, I wish more people were like you. So I'm telling you, I'm preaching it from the gospel, like I did it. So it's not like I didn't do it. I have done it already, and I've gotten it done, and I got a house to make sure that it happens. So you guys understand that those are things that'll help you make sure. And see, I just told you, paying your house biweekly. Biweekly saves you so much money. If you don't have it set up that way, ask your lender and see if they'll let you do it. It is something that will make your life so much easier. You get to take and save your interest, and it knocks down payments exponentially. It makes your life easier in the sense that you get more payments scheduled in, because it's only 12 payments in a year, and you get 26. So that means you get 2 extra payments on your mortgage. 2 extra payments on your mortgage each year. How many times that means? You'll get more payments scheduled for the rest of the however long it is. So that means your mortgage payments, instead of being 30 years, it may be knocked down to 25, and maybe even to maybe 20. So how good would that feel to be able to say, I paid off my house instead of 30 years, it only took me 25 or 20 years. And people are like, oh, how did you do that? Just a simple math, they doing it like that, because we're going to get into some of that later on, which is I don't want to spoil it, but it's an awesome rule, but it's just something else that helps you to understand how interest works and that kind of concept. So I hope I have taught you guys some great information about how to make sure you get into a house, how home ownership is versus renting, and how it works together, and how the dynamics of renting is really not towards your benefit. It's just a temporary thing. So if it's something that you are going to be there just for a short term, I get it. But don't make it your end game. Make it something that you're going to say, okay, I'm going to make a plan towards transitioning to getting into something else, because honestly, even if you're going to just live here for a little while and you buy a home, you can even sell it when you move, or you can rent it, or you can do other things. It gives you options. If you rent somebody's house and you're renting there for a long term, you're basically going to pay off their mortgage or their property, and like I say, and their kids' tuition towards their school. So think about those concepts, and I hope I have taught you something today. And like I told you, put the comments in there for us. Let us know if it makes some sense, or if there's anything else that you guys are interested in learning about. So thank you for joining with us.
Good morning and good evening. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Fabienne Seniors. I want to remind you that you are on our platform, Achievers Financial Education. And today I have with me Anitra Harrington, who is one of our financial trainer here. Anitra, last week we covered consumption expenses and also investments. And you also gave a few examples between Tasha and Susan on how they save and who were able to invest. This week, today, you covered on having the power of owning a home, the benefits of it. Can you elaborate more between the two shows from last week and this week?
Sure. So what we had talked about from last week was more about how people take and have expenses and general expenses, and getting into understanding about how it was the investment expenses, which were something of, for just the general viewers to understand, is about having, like, for example, if you decide to go to school. And like, for example, if Tasha or Susan, one of them decided to go to school because they were both working in the restaurant and they got tired of working in the restaurant. So being that Tasha decides, you know what, I am tired of working in the restaurant, I want to do something more. So for her, it would be an investment to go to school and to take and be in school for 4 years. So after 4 years of going to school, it would take and be prudent for her to be able to get a better job than working in a restaurant. She may be able to now find a job that may qualify her in a higher and level of whatever she's doing, and no longer will work in that job only making the $1,800. And it may have cost her some money to pay into it, and it's an investment. It's an expense, but it's an investment that will give her return, because now instead of her only making $1,800, maybe she can make $5,000, a month, and now she can be able to have that kind of concept to be able to do. Where an expense, for example, maybe Susan, now that she has bought a house, she decides that she may not need to take and worry about really doing that because she's comfortable and whatnot, but she wants to go shopping. And she has a bad habit of just going shopping all the time. And she just loves going out and shopping. And, ladies, we like to shop and like to look good. So we like to go out and really, do it up and probably shop a lot online or whatever it may be her niche is that she wants to do. And after a while, for over the years, her spending, what happens? So her expenses are not going to return anything, and it's going to cost her quite a bit of money. And does she have anything that she's going to get value from that? So those are just going to be expenses that are not going to return anything from her, and she's not going to be able to get anything back. So Tasha, on the other hand, is now probably going to be maybe some type of level of executive or something else that she may be able to get over time because she has invested in herself. And now Susan may be thinking, maybe I should have did the same thing, or maybe I should try to do something else. Where those type of expenses are different. And being that, what we were talking about today, we got really deep into getting into an investment and how the benefits of the investment really benefited you of having ownership from that investment, and how it can benefit you in a tax way and different ways of how to get it paid off and those kind of stuff. And we went down real detail in it. So those things really took and gave us some benefits to understand how those investments really can pay off. Because sometimes investments do really give you tax benefits. Even if you had stocks, you have tax benefits from it if you had a loss, or those kind of concept as well. So those are different types of, investments that they have versus the consumption. The consumption ones are just, we go out to eat, we take and pay for dinner, we take and just go shopping, or we do those kind of things. Now, if, Susan may have went and bought some really expensive Coach purses and different things like that, and then she went to sell it on the website to get some money back from those kind of things. Maybe those things may be an investment, but it's not the traditional type of investment that most people would have, but those are more expenses. So I hope that helped clarify some of the questions and the different things of what we talked about from last week, from this week as well. So that's all I have. Anything else you have for me?
No, I think that's the questions most of the viewers had. I want to thank you for clarifying everything. I just want to thank everyone for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. We are live every Thursday at 5 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next week. Bye-bye.